If you are a realtor or a broker and you want to really niche down and work with developers, you have to understand what developers are looking for and how we analyze properties. Having an understanding of how that works is going to be critical. But the thing that's going to set you apart from all other brokers and realtors in this space is learning how to.
I'm Maude, and I'm on a mission to empower realtors with cutting-edge insights, success stories, and actionable strategies from the top minds in real estate. Welcome back to Sold Right Away, and in this episode series, we solve real estate marketing challenges in real time. Here, you won't just hear stories, you'll walk away with actionable strategies you can apply right away to build your business, boost your visibility, and generate more leads. If you're ready to market smarter and win more, this is the show for you. And that's why today I've brought on Samuel Herschorn, co-founder of Biosis Real Estate Developments. Sam is an accomplished architect and real estate developer who's here to share insider insights on the development process and offer strategic tips to help realtors craft compelling offers and attract the right developers to get their deals closed. Let's get to my chat with Sam. Hi Sam, thanks for joining us on the episode today. Tell us, how did you arrive to real estate?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I got into real estate through a series of choices that kind of led me here, starting, coming out of high school, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I was highly analytical, but I also had an artistic streak. And I originally thought, well, maybe I should go into law because I've got several family members who are lawyers. I certainly like to argue, and the idea of going into the profession made a lot of sense. But one of my teachers said, "Well, Sam, why don't you give architecture a try?" I was certainly into drawing and was interested in construction and building. So I applied to the Israeli School of Architecture and Urbanism up in Ottawa, and it was a very rigorous process to get accepted. I needed to create an original portfolio of work, write an essay, go through several rounds of interviews, and they only accepted about 80 students out of 1,500 applicants, and they selected me. So I figured, okay, I'll give it a shot. And it stuck. I got my undergraduate degree and my master's degree in architecture. I started working in the architectural industry and quickly came to realize that the architecture industry is very much a passion industry. People go into it because we're designing and building these amazing structures that are often going to outlast us. But we take on a huge amount of responsibility, a lot of stress, a lot of liability, and architects are typically not very good businessmen, business people. So we continuously undercut each other in terms of fees, competing to get work. And as a result, I was earning barely above minimum wage, coming with a master's degree level, and working long hours, lots of overtime, often unpaid overtime. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to live life on my own terms and really, live it to the degree that I want with some freedom doing this. So I was faced with some options like, do I pivot? Do I go into a brand new career? Or do I try and figure out how to make this career work? And it was around that time I started investing. I had been investing in the stock market with what little savings I had, and I saw some returns there. But I picked up the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and as so many investors do. And the thesis, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But the thesis is that you start a business, you put the cash flow into real estate, and that real estate appreciation and cash flow has a compounding effect that leads you to financial freedom. So I started emulating that and, picking up every book I could read about real estate investing. And then as I became more and more familiar with the strategies, I came to realize, maybe I could leverage my expertise in architecture. because I was working for some pretty large developers, but doing maybe probably 90% of the work for them to realize their projects. Why don't you just learn the 10%, the business side, what it takes to run a development practice, and take advantage of the massive appreciation, the forced appreciation that comes with real estate development. So I hired a development coach. I met my business partner, Michael, and we started learning the business side of development. And from there, hit the ground running. I spun up my own architecture practice and created a real estate development company called Biosis Real Estate Development. And the thesis behind the venture is that the development company finds the land, puts the deals together, raises the capital, and then the architecture firm will design it, manage the construction, and basically bring it to fruition. So
Nice.
that's where I am today.
Yeah, so each of your partner has have different strengths,
Mm-hmm.
and then you all help each other out to make the whole process on your own instead of relying on your clients, I guess.
Yeah, so I've got three partners on the development side. So Michael, the first one I mentioned there, his background is in tech sales, but he was investing in real estate and he's managed his own development projects. And we started working together back in 2021. He brought in into the fold my other partner Graham. They both did their MBA at Telfer up in Ottawa. And Graham, he's a civil and a structural engineer. He has his own civil firm, but his background in engineering led him to, and his expertise with Excel specifically led him to kind of head up our underwriting division. So he put together our pro forma model, and he analyzes most of the projects that come through. I brought in an old school friend of mine, Dakota, who's an architectural technologist. So the architectural route and the architectural technologist routes are a little different. Architects are kind of big picture planning, client relations, dealing with approvals. Technologists are much more high level details, building design, project management, specifications, and construction detailing. So he was a great fit to pair with me and my partners on the design side. And he's actually my partner on the architecture firm as well. So between the four of us, we are a very strong team, a long track record of design and development, and working together. It's a great fit.
Hmm. So now we know the individual. Tell us about Biosis Real Estate, the company. What is
Mhm.
it that you do, and who do you work with?
Yeah, so when we first started, we were analyzing pretty much any project that came across our desk. And the more we analyzed the opportunities out there, the more we came to narrow down our focus and realize that there's a very specific model that we wanted to pursue, that we felt the numbers really worked. And this model is low to mid rise multifamily apartment buildings. Typically, it's going to be wood frame or light gauge steel framing. We try and avoid concrete because concrete is pretty unaffordable. And we don't want to compete with the larger developers who are doing the high rise developments, large concrete developments for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it's a very complex section of the building code. There are lots of logistical challenges and a huge amount of risk when you're doing these large multi-year developments. Your approvals process is going to take 7 to 10 years minimum, and then you're going to need another 4 to 5 years to build it. So it's a 15-year kind of investment timeline.
Mhm.
Whereas the projects we're focused on, which is between 50 to 150 units, they're smaller, but they can be built much faster. They're also the unit types that municipalities and local governments really want. Every level of government right now knows that we are in a serious housing shortage, and they want to get stuff built quickly. They don't like projects that are massive and will upset the local order. So
Yeah.
these smaller infill projects are getting pushed through, where you might hear stories about nightmares dealing with the cities and how long it takes to get approvals. We're getting our approvals and done in a fraction of the time. And we're going to be building them at a much lower cost per square foot, but the rents are the same, right?
Mhm.
So there's economies of scale there that lend itself really well to financial return for our investors, but also delivering a product type that communities desperately want and need.
Yeah, I love it. It's
Mhm.
a win-win for every angle.
Exactly.
Tell us about the investors you work with. Who are they? What type of people are they? And then what are they gaining out of working with you?
Yeah. So typically we're working with accredited investors. So these are people who have had success on their personal side, whether that's investing through other means or they are high paying jobs, doctors, lawyers, vets, people who work very hard, get paid well, and are looking to expand their passive income so that they can live life on their terms. Um, and uh, and so the way we've made these connections is through networking, online, social media, LinkedIn, but also through friends and family and other colleagues and business relationships.
If someone is an investor or just beginner investor and doesn't know much about what you offer, how do
Mhm.
you meet with them the first time? What does the conversation look like?
Yes, we often do work with people who are newer to development, but usually they come with some level of understanding that of what the opportunity means and what development means. Then my job is to educate them on the risks, potential returns certainly, but development is a very complex process. It's one thing to buy an existing apartment, slap a few coats of paint on, and get it leased up, and then you're managing the property. That's where most investors start. That's even where I started. But once you get into real estate development, it's a whole different ballgame. It requires patience. It requires a steady hand, and it requires working with very talented and experienced professionals. And the last thing is understanding that something's going to go wrong. It does on every single project to varying degrees, but you need to keep a calm and level head and work together collaboratively with your professionals to solve the problem. And that's really what development is, and where the value is problem solving. Think from the very beginning where you have a piece of land. The first problem you want to solve is what can you do with it? How do you analyze an empty piece of land to say, I'm going to build a building that's going to be, yay big. It's going to have X number of units. It's going to be, a tall building or a low rise building. How many parking spots am I going to fit there? You can't just start throwing numbers at it. You actually have to do a very deep dive into the official plan, the zoning bylaw, into the building code, and it's almost like having a Rubik's cube. Clicking all the pieces over and over until you finally find the puzzle. You solve the puzzle, and that's the building design process.
Mhm.
And most people don't have that skill set. You might be able to look it up online, but then reading through a zoning bylaw can give you, can actually be a difficult thing, hard to understand, and you'll end up, there are contradictory statements there,
Yeah,
so your head can start to spin.
yeah, and that's
Um,
where you and your team come along and solve your
Exactly, because we've been doing it for years, so
yeah.
we understand how to read it, interpret it. But even then, we go directly to the horse's mouth, and we will actually take a preliminary concept to the city and say, "Here's what we were thinking. Here's how we see it lining up with the bylaw. Can you give us your opinion?"
Mhm.
Right. The other thing to understand about that process is even working with the city is a collaborative effort. They have their own mandates. They have their own desires to see certain areas built at higher density and other areas built at lower density. They have a larger plan for their neighborhoods and communities. Your building and your design has to fit within that larger plan.
Mhm.
You can't just say, I've got a massive lot in a residential neighborhood. I like industrial. I'd like to build an industrial complex. it's not going to work with their long-term plan, it will never get passed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm assuming you have built also relationships with those city councilors and
Mm-hmm.
people in charge of the city planning to make sure your vision of your company is also aligning with
Mm-hmm.
their plan.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
all really relationships in this industry.
Yeah.
So we work repeated with repeated individuals at the city level, even at the provincial level, and and those relationships. The more you work with people, the more they come to understand what you're about, and you do get some favorable, um, collaborations from that.
Yeah. And then when you do your networking, we talked about LinkedIn and how you connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are key points that you're looking for when connecting with new members?
Yeah, we're looking for people um, who see the value in building new housing in Ontario.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty broad, but more specifically, they want to be part of building responsible real estate, responsible housing that can be attainable, but also are designed and built with a sustainable mindset. We in the architecture industry, we're really attuned to the fact that our process, our creation, starts with destruction. There's whether you're tearing up land, you're
Yeah.
destroying an ecosystem, or you're tearing down an existing house. That's destruction, and then we reposition and redesign it and build something new out of it. But that process has an inherent impact on our ecosystems, on our environment, and so we approach it with two mindsets. One, how do we minimize that impact for longevity and sustainability? But then also, how do we do that in a way that creates value? Because
Yeah.
our philosophy is it's not sustainable if you're not adding value to investors and to the communities.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's a passion project,
Yeah.
right? It's not a viable business model.
I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. How would you describe your business model in like a simple way for anyone to understand?
Yeah. Um, so our business model, low to mid-rise multifamily apartments, utilizing favorable financing terms in growth markets.
Perfect. And what is
Mhm.
the key to your success so far? How do you describe that?
The key is building relationships. Every opportunity we've had has come through some relationship, a seed that we planted months, even years before. Like the realtor we worked with on our current project, which is a stacked townhouse development about half hour outside of Ottawa. She was a friend of a family member. She brought this deal to us because she wanted to expand from residential into more commercial real estate.
Hmm.
And we worked closely with her, negotiating the project with the sellers for over 10 months.
Wow.
And eventually we closed on the property, and now she's bringing us more deals, right? So it's a relationship that's bearing fruit.
Yeah.
Same with our other projects. We actually our 7-unit apartment building. This one was a partnership. We met a couple guys who had gotten in over their head on a plot of land. They didn't have the background or expertise, but they knew that there was an opportunity to develop it for added density. But the market had turned. They had a bunch of repairs they needed to do, and they just needed some help. So
Mhm.
we jumped in with them. We started showing them how we do our highest and best use analysis. We did the underwriting for them, and we said, guys, there's actually more opportunity here for this property than you originally thought, but it's going to require a huge amount of uplift, huge amount of work, and some highly technical expertise. Do you guys want to work on it together? And they said, yes, please. So we've been partnering with them on it to bring that project to life. And now we're kind of doing the same thing for a property in Kingston. That would be a 50 unit in downtown Kingston. One of our investors actually brought that to us and said, "Hey, I've been kind of investing in this other site. The developer wants to sell, and we'd like to buy it from them and be the GPs on it. Can you give us your thoughts?" So we worked closely with him to underwrite the project, and we're finalizing terms to potentially join them as a partner or provide them with our architectural services. So the more you work with people, the more you network, and the more they like and trust you, the more opportunity there is.
Yeah. And do you feel like your investors, they work with you to retain the land and the development, or to just resell it after it's complete?
We always underwrite our projects as if we're going to take it right the way through the entire business model. So buy the land, get the approvals, build it, hold it long term, and eventually sell it. But the nice thing about development is that there are natural exits along the way.
Yeah.
So we can buy the land, uh, we could uh, we could upzone it, increase the density, and then sell that to a different developer. We could take it through and get the building permits and then flip it. We could build out all the units, turn them into condos and sell them individually, or sell the entire project, or we hold it long term, as I said. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody was to shadow you for a week, what would they learn about how you work?
They would probably learn that I work too much, and yeah, I'm usually I don't really compromise on time with my kids, so that means I have to make up the time late at night. I'm often working till 1 or 2 in the morning. And what they would see on the business side is a lot of emails, a lot of coordination, because I manage 2 companies, and I work with business partners, and I've got employees on the architecture side. So a lot of what I do is a mix of working with clients, working with investors, and then trying to delegate some of the actual business activities to staff and to my other business partners. So it's a little chaotic on the surface, but I mean, I certainly enjoy the work. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all
Yeah.
about loving what you do.
Hmm.
How do you grow your business from here? What's your vision?
Yeah. So we've got a multi-phased plan for bringing housing supply to Ontario. The first plan the first phase that we're in right now is spinning up these low to mid rise projects. And the 3 projects I mentioned, we're raising capital for to get them off the ground. The next phase is to simplify the construction process. You, we're leaning heavily into modular framing and modular construction. And what I mean by that is that we want to build our units in a factory and ship them to site
Mm-hmm.
and build and just click them together almost like Legos.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for this, as if you recall the big uh, the market during COVID
Yeah.
was
Wow.
going up like a rocket ship. And
Yeah.
what we saw as developers is that construction costs were sky high. And when we drilled down into those construction costs, the main cost was actually availability of labor. And we still have a huge labor shortage. But because demand has kind of been killed off since the rise in interest rates and construction starts are down across the board, construction pricing has dropped since then. But we anticipate that to climb up very sharply as soon as we're out of this economic recession.
Yeah.
Um, and and the reason being is that all of the boomers, the skilled tradespeople who have been in the industry for 30, 40 years, they're going to be retiring.
Yeah.
And we have not had enough young people enter the trades to make up for that shortfall. And our immigration policies have not emphasized tradespeople. So there's going to be a serious shortage of these site workers and these sub trades for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
The solution is to take away that labor component. Um, so moving that into the shop where you have higher degree of control over the quality, over your construction process and timing. So you basically do that behind the scenes, and that dramatically minimizes the amount of time spent on site.
Mhm.
And the site work, that's subject to weather delays, that's
Yes.
subject to availability of the trades. I mean,
Mhm.
we've had projects where, the drywallers just don't show up. They don't show up and you're calling, hey, where are you? Oh, we're on a different site and we're going to have to reschedule. And then weeks go by and you can't get them in there to finish the job, which means you have to go to find some other supplier, and they overcharge you because it's a rush job,
'Cause you
right?
need.
So we want to eliminate all that, keep it in house and under our own umbrella, so that when we actually are able to start construction work on site, it goes very quickly and much more smoothly.
Mhm.
So
And
that's the next phase that we're leaning into. And then following that, we want to do this at a much larger scale. So these smaller projects, but over multiple sites. So we're utilizing economies of scale and efficiencies, but also pooling these projects so that the larger investors can come in and write the larger checks, which gives us more flexibility to do this.
yeah, smart, smart.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to think about investors that work with you, what's the one piece of advice you would give new investors in
Mm-hmm.
your industry?
Um, yeah, the best piece of advice for investors in real estate development, or people who want to get into real estate development, is to understand the underwriting process. There are a lot of people like myself out there who are doing development deals. We all have different underwriting techniques and processes. So how do you differentiate between, us, a Graybrook or another smaller player who's, starting infill projects? They're all going to give you great numbers, but you always have to drill down into those numbers yourself and do your own due diligence to make sure that it's valid and it's not just smoke and mirrors.
Love it.
And that process is not easy, especially if you have no background in construction or design.
Mhm.
So one thing that we're doing is we're actually creating a spreadsheet that passive investors can use to just double check the numbers that developers or sponsors are giving them.
Mhm.
It does follow how we underwrite things, but the idea is that it's going to identify red flags for you that will, and questions that you should ask them and follow up so that you understand the numbers and understand the likelihood of success.
Yeah, this is very valuable for
Mm-hmm.
investors for sure. Yeah. If you think about yourself and how you started your business and built your business, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Um, yeah, the best advice I've ever received about building businesses is to figure out how to systemize your processes and develop your standards early on.
Love it.
It was something I emphasized when I started, but as the business grew, I found my time getting pulled into the day to day. And while that was important, you have to deal with clients, you have to manage your accounting, your bookkeeping, your cash flows. You won't see real growth until you learn how to delegate those processes and focus on the things that only you can do.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit, like what is one thing that you are really good at that
Hmm.
it's
So I'm really good at spatial design and problem solving. So like doing floor layouts, massing studies, yeah, things that are early in that architectural process where you've got a site, doing a zoning law review, establishing the constraints of the site, and then creating a building that fits within those constraints. It's something I like to do, I'm good at, but as the head of two companies, it's very time consuming, and I have colleagues who can do that for me.
yeah.
But stepping away from that has been tough because it's something that I've been doing for many years, and I enjoy doing so. Yeah, it's been a bit of an adjustment to let that go.
But now you can keep your eye on what's next. What are the big pictures? And then,
Exactly. Growing the business, setting up those systems and processes that will enable us to scale. That's my number one focus.
nice. Thank you. Before we end today, what is next for your company? We talked about long term, but what is next in the next half of the year that we have remaining?
Yeah, finishing our capital raise, breaking ground on our stack townhouse development,
Nice.
and getting approvals for our apartment building. That one is we're working on the drawings. We're putting together our site plan application, but the city of Ottawa is completely updating their zoning bylaw, and that's set to come into effect in the start of 2026. As soon as that happens, our property immediately gets upzoned to permit the 6-story apartment building that we have planned,
Wow,
and the value doubles. The value of the land doubles without us having to put a shovel in the ground.
wow.
So yeah, that's an exciting development, and we're just getting our drawings ready for when that happens, and we can make our application.
Nice. I
Yeah.
love it. That's great. That's positive and exciting, like you said.
Hmm.
Uh,
Uh,
go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
We'll cut that out. But you were gonna say something? Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Let's go on to your next question. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, where can our listeners find you? Where can they connect with you?
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Samuel Herschorn. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. If you Google Biosis Real Estate Development, you'll see us on your Google search, or you can go to biosisrealestate.com and visit our website and check us out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on the show today and sharing all of that career and business development that you've been working from.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I can pause this now. And then, how do you feel? Was there anything else you wanted to talk about that I missed? Or
Well, your audience are typically realtors and brokers.
investors, realtor investors, and brokers? Yes.
Okay. I mean, I could give some advice to brokers and working with developers if
Okay. I
if
can
that would
ask
be
that
of
questions.
interest.
That's perfect. I can add that just before we talked about advice for investors.
Sure.
I can ask about advice for realtors and brokers working with investors, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Tell us, what is the best advice you have for realtors and brokers working with investors?
So I'll tell you what advice I have for realtors and brokers looking to work with developers, because that's what I do, and we do work with brokers to source deals. And what I've noticed is there's a lot that come across my desk that are not properly qualified. If you are a realtor or a broker and you want to really niche down and work with developers, you have to understand what developers are looking for and how we analyze properties. So I think I touched a bit on how we analyze the zoning bylaw and a site. Having an understanding of how that works is going to be critical. Doing your own research on the zoning bylaw when you're working with a seller is also going to be important. But the thing that's going to set you apart from all other brokers and realtors in this space is learning how to properly underwrite a development project. And that goes above and beyond just the building type, how many units you can fit, but understanding things like development charges, our interest costs, carrying costs, our contingency fees, and all the development fees that come with it, how they add up, how it gets amortized over a time span, and then how we calculate returns. Because I'll give you an example. There was a site in Hamilton that came across my desk, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, this would be a perfect site for townhouses. But the realtor said, oh, this site could be upzoned to permit a 20-story high rise. And I looked at the site and it's all low rise development. There isn't a tower to be found within like 500 square meter radius. So in what world would a planning official approve a 20-story tower in this neighborhood? And they were pricing it as if it could be approved. So they wanted, I think it was $12 million for this 2-acre site in a residential neighborhood. It's never going to happen. And so if you're a realtor and you come across a site, you really have to understand what can be built. And then you have to understand and price it in a way that's going to be attractive to developers, because we have to make a return, our investors have to make a return, and we have to build a product that's suitable for the area.
That's really good advice, because the real estate agents, they don't learn that in school, obviously. Yeah. So they would only be able to learn that from partnering with someone who knows about it.
Yeah. So we're going to be running a few, webinars and potentially create a course that will teach people how we do our underwriting, and then we'll provide a spreadsheet that realtors or investors can use to actually help underwrite their projects as well. So if that's something of interest, reach out to me and we can sign you up for when we do run that.
I love it. I think that would be great, because also a lot of people, when they think of development, they only think of 20 level high rises. But with your infill development knowledge and experience, that it can be townhouses, and it could also be profitable without having the headaches of a 20.
Yeah. And we always work backwards to produce our offer when we're putting an offer in place. We start with, okay, what are the market rents? What are the construction rates? Then we create the design and then use that to plug in our numbers, and we work backwards. And at the end, what's left over is how much we can offer to hit our return metric. So if a realtor can do that and put that with their offering to a prospective buyer, obviously they'll do their own due diligence to validate the numbers, but that greatly simplifies things, because it takes a lot of time for us to do that. And if I already know that the broker that I'm working with is doing this the same way we do it, hitting the same markers as us, it's going to reduce that amount of time that we need, and we can put an offer together a lot faster, and an offer that's realistic that a seller can actually take to the bank.
Amazing. Yeah. Again, a win-win for every party in the transaction.
Exactly.
Thanks for tuning in, the Sold Right Away podcast, where driven realtors come to get real strategies, real results, and real actions you can take on to win more listings, leads, and visibility. If today's episode helped you think differently or gave you a fresh perspective, do us a favor. Subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with others in your network. And hey, what is your biggest marketing challenge right now? Reach out, drop a DM, or book a 15-minute strategy call with me at soldrightaway.com, where we help market smarter, grow faster, and close with confidence. Until next time, keep closing and keep winning.